My name is Stella, and I want to share the tumultuous journey my life has taken. It all began in the comfort of wealth, where I was the adored only child of my affluent parents. My father, Mato, was a successful businessman, and my mother, Haley, was a beloved socialite who hosted the city's grandest events. They provided me with everything I needed, surrounding me with love and attention. When I went off to college, my singular goal was to make my parents proud, so I devoted myself entirely to my studies. That's when Jason entered my life. He was persistent, showing up after classes, bringing me coffee during late-night study sessions, and even showing up unexpectedly at our home. One day, in our living room, he boldly declared, "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, I love your daughter, and I want you to know that I have serious intentions for her." My father, seeing in Jason the son he had always wanted, immediately warmed to him and even suggested I give him a chance. Hesitant at first, I eventually agreed. To my surprise, Jason's charm won me over. We started dating, and before long, we were married after graduation. My parents, especially my father, were thrilled, viewing Jason as the son they had always desired. At our wedding reception, my father embraced Jason like family, helping him launch his own business, a modern car wash, and even helping us buy our first home. A year into our marriage, we had our son, Wyatt. Holding him for the first time filled me with a love I had never known. I embraced motherhood fully, dedicating myself to raising Wyatt. Our life seemed to follow a steady rhythm as Wyatt grew from a playful toddler to a thoughtful teenager. Meanwhile, Jason's car wash business struggled, and he grew resentful, feeling overshadowed by my father's success. The tension between us deepened, filled with frequent arguments that left me walking on eggshells. Wyatt, sensing the strain, withdrew further, spending more time alone or with friends. As the years went by, the pressures of stress and motherhood took their toll on me. I was no longer the college girl Jason had married. He made cruel remarks about my appearance, suggesting I had let myself go. Though hurt, I told myself he was simply overwhelmed. But as I navigated the strain of our lives, I realized that I needed to find strength within myself, no longer relying on others' validation to define my worth. Then came the day that changed everything. One seemingly normal Tuesday, I received a call that would turn my world upside down. A voice on the other end said, "Mrs. Thompson, I'm sorry to inform you that your parents have been involved in a plane crash. They didn't survive." The weeks that followed were a blur of funeral arrangements and estate settlements, made even harder by Jason's disturbing absence. When he was around, his demeanor was shockingly detached. Just a week after the funeral, he began pressing me about my parents' inheritance. "Have you spoken to the lawyer yet? We need to get this sorted," he urged, his tone indifferent to my grief. I was stunned by his insensitivity. "Jason, can't this wait? I'm still grieving," I replied. "Business doesn't wait, Stella. We need to know where we stand," he said, dismissing my pain. I scheduled a meeting with Mr. Hudson, our family lawyer, in his polished office. The air was thick with tension as he began. "Mrs. Thompson, your parents' will is unusual. It's divided into two parts, with the first part revealed now and the second in 1 year." Jason leaned forward, eager for information, while I struggled to grasp the gravity of what was unfolding. "The mansion is to be left to your future grandchildren, with their guardians serving as trustees until they come of age," Mr. Hudson said. I was stunned. Wyatt, our only son, wasn't even married. Wyatt, who had insisted on attending, responded with an unsettling, "Well, that opens up some interesting possibilities." Before I could ask him about it, Jason snapped, "What about the rest? The businesses, the money?" Mr. Hudson, with finality, said, "The remainder will be disclosed in a year." As we left the office, the mood between us had shifted. Jason was unnervingly quiet, and Wyatt seemed deep in thought. A few days later, Wyatt stunned us at dinner with an unexpected announcement. "Mom, Dad, there's someone I'd like you to meet." The next day, he introduced us to Ma, a young woman with a guarded smile. "This is my wife, and we're expecting a child," Wyatt said proudly. I was speechless. "Wife? Pregnant? How did this happen so quickly?" I asked. Wyatt explained that they had hastily married after finding out about the pregnancy. I glanced at Jason, who seemed oddly pleased by this development. Something about the situation felt off, but I focused on the fact that I was about to become a grandmother. "Congratulations," I said, forcing a smile. This is quite a surprise. Ma's smile widened. Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. I'm so excited to be part of your family. Ma moved in shortly after, citing the need for family support during her pregnancy. Initially, I welcomed her, but soon, the dynamics of our household shifted. I began to sense something was amiss. Ma subtly undermined me at every turn, criticizing my cooking, offering backhanded compliments, and drawing Jason's attention with her flattery. Jason soaked it all in, enjoying her praise and spending more time with her, while I was pushed aside. I confronted Wyatt about Ma's behavior, but he dismissed my concerns, accusing me of being jealous. His words stung, and I began to feel utterly invisible. Jason, on the other hand, thrived in this new environment, enjoying the attention from both Wyatt and Ma, while looking at me with increasing disdain. One day, I ran into Ruby, an old college friend. We caught up over coffee, and during our conversation, she reminded me of a man we both knew in college who pursued wealthy women, a man named Jason. My stomach sank as I realized she was describing my husband. I drove home in a daze, feeling as if the ground had been pulled out from under me. That evening, I confronted Jason about what I had learned. At first, he tried to laugh it off, but his brief moment of fear told me everything. When I pressed him, he admitted, laughing, that he had married me for my family's wealth and never loved me. The words were a crushing blow. He confessed he had stayed with me only for financial gain, calling me a burden. He revealed that with my parents gone, he no longer needed me, and that he intended to take control of the inheritance, all for himself. The pieces of the puzzle fell into place. Wyatt's rushed marriage, Ma's pregnancy, and their treatment of me were all part of a calculated plan to inherit my family's wealth. You planned all this? I asked, my voice shaking with disbelief. Jason laughed harshly. Give credit where it's due. It was mostly Wyatt's idea. The kid's got a good business mind, he said, dismissing me entirely. I couldn't process the betrayal. Does Ma know? I asked, already fearing the answer. Of course, she does, Jason said, smirking. She's smart. She knows a good opportunity when she sees one. She'll make a proper wife for a businessman. My heart shattered. I had nowhere to go, no money of my own, nothing but the house I shared with people who no longer cared for me. 3 months later, Jason delivered another blow. Pack your bags, Stella. We're moving into your parents' house, he said coldly. I was stunned. When did we decide this? I asked, but his mocking laugh told me that this was his decision, not mine. We didn't. I decided. We're moving in with Wyatt and Ma. Our grandson is the heir now, he said, each word a slap in the face. What about our house? I asked. Oh, that's sold. The money's already spent, he replied carelessly. On things for people I actually care about. And you're not on that list. As they eagerly prepared to move, I watched silently, consumed by grief. Jason, Wyatt, and Ma enjoyed their newfound wealth, while I was ignored, bedridden, and left behind. When we moved into my parents' house, it felt like a cruel joke. Ma claimed the master bedroom, leaving me in a small guest room at the back. As the days turned into weeks, I became more isolated. Ma had her baby and turned the house into her domain, while I became a servant in my own home. Stella, could you change the baby's diaper? Ma would call from the other room. The living room's messy. Can you clean it up? I didn't respond. I was too numb to feel anything but the deep ache of betrayal. I found small comfort in caring for my grandson, his innocent smile a bittersweet solace. But a month after the move, I hit my breaking point. At dinner, which I had prepared, Ma grew particularly demanding. Stella, get me some more water and hurry up with these plates, she barked. Something inside me snapped. All the years of frustration and hurt erupted. Enough, I shouted, slamming my hands on the table. I am not your maid, Ma. This is my parents' house, and I deserve respect. The room fell silent. Ma's face crumpled, shocked by my sudden outburst, unable to respond. Then, tears streamed down her face. accusing me of being harsh despite all they had supposedly done for me. Jason, red with anger, declared he'd had enough of my ingratitude. "Pack your things, you're not welcome here anymore. This house is for our grandson now," he said. I was in shock. "You can't be serious. Where am I supposed to go?" I asked, my voice desperate. Jason casually pulled divorce papers from his pocket. "I've been waiting for the right moment to give you these," he said, handing me the signed papers. "I want you gone by morning." I turned to Wyatt, hoping for support, but he just shrugged, avoiding my gaze. "I'm an adult now, Mom. I don't need you anymore." With shaking hands, I took the papers. As I walked away, Ma's smirk was the last thing I saw. My world felt shattered, and I was utterly alone. Heart heavy, I dialed a familiar number. Ruby, my old college friend, picked up right away. Hearing the distress in my voice, she offered me a place to stay. As we settled in, Ruby opened up about her own struggles. Her son, devastated after his pregnant fiancée left him, had been reeling. When I saw a picture of her, I froze. Staring back at me was Ma, the woman who had caused my heartbreak. "Ruby," I said, my voice faltering, "I think I know where your son's fiancée is." Over tea, I told her everything. Her shock quickly turned into determination. "We need to expose them," she said firmly. The next day, I returned to my parents' house under the pretense of gathering my belongings. While there, I managed to collect a few strands of my grandson's hair for a DNA test. The results confirmed what we suspected. Ruby's son was the father of Ma's baby, not Wyatt. Just as I was grappling with how to confront Wyatt and Jason, Mr. Hudson, my parents' lawyer, called. He wanted me to review the second part of my parents' will the next day. I sat, my heart pounding, as he read the will to me. "To our beloved daughter, Stella," he began, "we leave our luxury apartment valued at $610,000. But there was more. In the event of a divorce, all their property, including the business Jason was involved in, would revert to you." I was stunned. My father had been the silent investor in Jason's business, and he had cleverly ensured everything was registered in his name. For years, I thought I had nothing, but in reality, I had everything. When I asked about the house Jason had sold, Mr. Hudson reassured me, "That's the only thing Jason can claim. Everything else is yours." I couldn't help but laugh as the weight of this newfound truth settled in. Jason had thought he was outsmarting me, but in the end, he had only outwitted himself. The next day, as I stepped into my new apartment, I was taken aback by its beauty, sleek lines, floor-to-ceiling windows, and modern furnishings that made it feel like a sanctuary. For the first time in a long while, I felt at peace. Then my phone rang. It was Wyatt. "Mom," he said urgently, "it's been a year since we saw the first part of the will. We need to know what's in the second part." He sounded entitled, almost certain that everything was his. I smirked inwardly. "Wyatt, this isn't something we can discuss over the phone. Why don't you, Ma, and Jason come over tomorrow? I'll text you the address." I hung up and immediately called Ruby. "It's time. Can you come over tomorrow? We're going to settle this." The next day, Jason, Wyatt, Ma, and the baby arrived at my apartment. Their jaws dropped as they took in the opulence of my new home. Wyatt whistled in awe. "This place is incredible, Mom. I can't wait to move in." Ma's eyes sparkled with greed. "It'll be even better once we change all this old lady decor, and once we get rid of you, Stella," she sneered. I raised an eyebrow at her, unfazed. "I wouldn't be so sure of that," I said calmly, inviting them to sit. I excused myself, and when I returned, Ruby was with me. Ma visibly paled. Before we got into the will, I introduced Ruby. "This is my friend, Ruby." Ma's eyes darted, seeking a way out, while Wyatt and Jason seemed confused. I turned to Ma. "We know the truth about you." I paused, savoring the moment before delivering the blow. "Wyatt," I said, turning to my son, "Ma decided to pass someone else's child off as yours to secure your grandparents' estate." Ruby stepped forward, her voice steady. "The baby isn't Wyatt's, it's my son's." The room fell dead silent. I presented the DNA test results. Ma's face drained of color. In a frenzy, she grabbed her bag. "I don't need this. I don't need a beggar's child," she spat, storming out of the apartment. Wyatt, stunned, stood frozen, still holding the baby. Jason, recovering from his shock, asked in a small voice. So who gets this apartment? I smiled, ready to deliver the final blow. Let me tell you about the second part of my parents' will. I began, detailing the inheritance, everything except the house Jason had sold. With each word, Jason's face fell further. Soon, he was on his knees, begging. Stella, please, I'm sorry, forgive me. His plea barely reached me. I considered everything that had happened, then looked at him, coldly. Get out, Jason, you have 2 days to leave my parents' house, or I'll call the police. Jason scrambled to his feet, desperate. He turned to Wyatt. Give me the car I bought you, I need something. No, Wyatt said firmly, it's mine, you're not getting anything from me. With one last look of frustration, Jason slunk out of the apartment, defeated. I turned to Wyatt, who stood there, head bowed in shame. Ruby gently took the baby from his arms. Since I'm the only heir to your grandparents' house, I need you to move out too, I said, my voice steady but not unkind. Wyatt avoided my gaze. I'm sorry, Mom, I'll go pack. Without another word, he left. As the door closed behind him, a heavy silence filled the room. The only sound now was the soft cooing of the baby in Ruby's arms. I looked at Ruby, feeling a strange mix of relief and freedom. Well, I said, smiling softly, that didn't go exactly as I expected this morning. Ruby nodded, cradling the baby. You did what you had to, Stella, they left you no choice. I sank into the sofa, my mind racing. For the first time in years, I felt truly free, free from lies, manipulation, and ready to live life on my terms. The months that followed were a whirlwind of self-discovery. I rented out my parents' house to a young family who appreciated its warmth and history, and the rental income, combined with selling Jason's business, gave me the financial freedom I'd never had. Ruby and I spent more time together, offering each other support. Little Jason, Ruby's grandson, became a part of my life in a way I never expected. Despite the painful circumstances surrounding his birth, I found myself attached to him. As for Wyatt, our relationship slowly began to heal. Though the wounds of betrayal were deep, we met tentatively, starting to rebuild what we had lost. Jason, meanwhile, had fallen from grace. I heard his dreams of wealth and status had crumbled, and one day, I saw him working at a small kiosk, older and worn. For a brief moment, our eyes met, and I felt a sense of closure. Life moved on. With each passing day, I embraced the new life I had created, leaving the past behind and finding peace in my newfound freedom.